Welcome to the Beyond You podcast, where we have real conversations about healing, trusting yourself again, and building the kind of relationships that actually feel good. I'm Samantha, and if you've ever felt like you're just going through the motions, like you're doing all the right things but still feeling disconnected, you're in the right place. Because here we go beyond the surface, beyond the hurt, beyond the patterns that keep you stuck. So take a deep breath, get comfortable, and let's get into it. Back to my YouTube channel. I'm so excited you're here and just my podcast. You've been listening over there, but because nobody warns you about the part when it's loneliness and letting go. And so I'm just so excited the fact that we get to talk about this. I see a lot of you guys are watching. If you can like and subscribe, so I know that more people can be able to see this, because everyone talks about how good it feels to let go, but nobody mentions the empty space that follows. And if you've ever felt more lonely after making a healthy choice than you did in an unhealthy situation, this conversation is for you. So I'm Samantha, this is Beyond You podcast, and we're talking about why doing the right thing can sometimes feel like the hardest thing, especially when you have to learn to let go. And I'd like to be able to kind of use the different stories that I hear, just being just a therapist and in this space, because I want to be able to help you be in authentic spaces, right? And so I need to tell you about a conversation I had with a client. I always like to use kind of the client Maya, right? It's not her real name. But it's going to sound so familiar to many of you because Maya finally ended this friendship that had been slowly draining her soul for years. She was always the one reaching out, always the one listening to her friends' problems for hours, always dropping everything when there was a crisis. But when Maya needed the support, her friends were suddenly too busy, too overwhelmed, too something. After months of feeling invisible in her own friendship, I remember Maya made the decision to step back. She stopped being the one to initiate contact, stopped being available for every emotional emergency. Basically, she let the friendship naturally fade, right? Because she was exhausted from carrying all the weight. And that also happens to a lot of you when you're so exhausted in these one sided friendships. So, what happened is she came to her session feeling proud of herself for setting that boundary. But then she said something that just broke my heart hearing. Samantha, I thought I'd just feel relieved, but I just feel empty. My phone used to buzz constantly with her drama, and now it's just quiet. Those 3-hour phone calls where I'd listen to her vent are gone, and I don't know what to do with all this time. And when I know, and I tell you, I get it because then came the part that really got me. I'm starting to think maybe I was too harsh. Maybe I should text her and apologize. At least when she was using me as her therapist, I felt needed. Now I just feel forgotten. This happens quite a bit, but we don't ever talk about it. We never talk about how it feels lonely when letting somebody go that you were once around, whether romantically or platonic. But what I did is I looked at Maya and said, understand the loneliness you're feeling after choosing yourself isn't worse than the loneliness you felt while being taken for granted. It's just different. And different feels scary because of it's unfamiliar. And here's what Maya was experiencing, and what so many of you might recognize. Our minds prefer familiar pain over unfamiliar peace. Even when something was draining us, it was predictable. We often mistaked being needed for being loved and being used for being valued. And I get it, like society's convinced us that being alone means we failed at connection, even when we're actually succeeding at self respect. But there is a crucial difference between being lonely and being alone, right? Because you need to be able to understand that loneliness is the ache of wanting genuine connection and not having it. Being alone is a conscious choice to protect your peace while you create space for relationships that actually nourish your soul. So I know a lot of times we don't understand the different types of loneliness. So I thought we could break this down. So what Maya was experiencing and what you might be feeling too is just one simple emotion. Right? There are different layers to this loneliness, and understanding them helps us navigate through them. There's reliefulness, right? When you feel the absence of chaos and it feels strangely unsettling. Your nervous system is so used to being activated by drama that peace feels foreign, almost suspicious. There's grief loneliness. You're not just mourning the person you let go of, but the version of yourself that existed in that dynamic. Maybe you felt needed, important, or purposeful in ways that weren't healthy, but were familiar. Okay. And then there's identity loneliness. When you When you've defined yourself by your relationships for so long that being alone makes you question who you are. If you were always a helpful one or the reliable friend, removing those roles can leave you feeling lost. And I get that. And there's what I call that sacred loneliness, right? This is a loneliness that comes with growth, with choosing authenticity over approval, the protecting your peace, even when it means standing alone temporarily. Right? We go through these valleys up and down, and sometimes we're in that bottom part in that valley. It feels like nothing's happened in a moment or two. But the loneliness is deep purpose. It's creating space for you to remember who you are outside of the other people's needs and expectations. Maya needed to understand that sometimes loneliness is just a sacred space between who you used to be and who you're becoming. And that can be a very nuanced place. Sometimes it's the quiet before better relationships, better boundaries, better alignment with your true values. So what I did is I shared with Maya the mindset shifts that can transform this experience from something that feels like punishment into something that feels like you're preparing for something, right? So understand you can do things like from I'm lonely because I made a mistake to I'm lonely because I made space. That emptiness you're feeling isn't evidence that you choose wrong. It's evidence that you courageously created room in your life for something genuinely better. And we also can do from being alone it means something's wrong with me to being alone means I'm finally being selective. In a world overflowing with surface level connections and energy draining dynamics, choosing to be alone rather than accept poor treatment is actually profound act of wisdom and self-love. So you can also do something like from I need people around me to feel worthy to my worth exists independent of my social calendar or just whatever put in just around me socially, right? My social calendar. Your value as a human being isn't determined by how many people want to be around you. It's determined how courageously authentic you're willing to be, how much you respect yourself, and how intentionally you're choosing to live. But here's a shift that completely transformed Maya's experience from I'm lonely to I'm learning to be my own best friend, right? When Maya stopped viewing alone time as something to endure and started seeing it as a precious opportunity to reconnect with herself. And I have found this has worked for me as well. When I find the time to just read up with me, when I'm reading, I'm like my actual interests, my genuine thoughts, authentic dreams, right? This can for you as well. Everything begins to shift when you be allowed to focus on you, because what happens, you start enjoying your own company that she hadn't since childhood. Maya and I, right, me doing this work too, realize you can't be so focused on being indispensable to others, right? You start becoming stranger to yourself. The loneliness after letting go became the sacred space where she fell back in love with her own mind, her own values, her own beautiful way of moving through the world. That's when she understood she wasn't losing connection. She was finally finding it with the most important people in her life, herself. So, what to do with the space? So, what I did is I gave Maya some practical guidance on what to actually do with all this newfound space. And I want to share it with you too. Please make sure to share like three people who need this, right? First, resist that urgent impulse to immediately fill the void. I know, I get it. It's hard, but don't rush to. I get. I don't say rush to dating apps. Don't friendly reach out to old acquaintances you haven't spoken to in years. It's just so funny when you break up with someone, all the time the exes come back, right? So don't say yes to every social invitation just to avoid sitting with yourself. When we hurry to fill emotional space, we usually end up settling for whatever is available instead of waiting for what truly aligns with our values. So get genuinely reacquainted with yourself. What do you actually enjoy when nobody else's preferences are influencing your choices? What makes you feel most alive and authentic? Use this precious time to rediscover parts of yourself that might have gotten buried under other people's expectations and needs. So, what I want you to do is I want to create beautiful routines that honor your solitude. Maybe it's Sunday morning coffee dates, right, with yourself in your journal. Maybe it's evening walks where you can process your thoughts without interruption. Maybe it's cooking elaborate, nourishing meals just because you want to savor the experience. Build a life that feels genuinely good to live, even when you're the only one witnessing it. Practice setting, practice sitting with your emotions before immediately seeking external comfort. When you feel sad, excited, confused, or overwhelmed, pause for a moment before calling someone else. What are these feelings trying to communicate? What do you need in this moment? Can you offer yourself that comfort and understanding first? Maya learned that the goal isn't to become permanently isolated. The goal is to build such a solid, loving relationship with yourself that you can only invite people into your life who genuinely enhance it, not people who just desperately need to feel complete or worthy, because that overall gets exhausting. So, what I want you to do is, I want you to trust in the process of that alone time. Because here's what I need you to trust: the loneliness you feel after letting go of what wasn't serving you is not punishment. It's not evidence that you made the wrong choice. It's not proof that you're unlovable or too difficult or destined to be alone. It's a transition. It's your life reorganizing itself around your new standards. It's a space being created for connections that will actually nourish you instead of drain you. But that space has to exist first. You can't pour fresh water into a dirty cup. You have to empty it first, clean it out, or keep pouring that clean water in until it's all gone. Make room for what's pure and life giving for yourself. Because loneliness is the emptying, the cleaning out, the making room. I want you to be able to shift the perspective of it because I understand, I know it's uncomfortable. I know there are moments when you'll want to go back to the familiar dysfunction just to feel connected to something. I know there are nights when the silence feels too loud and the space feels too empty. I get that, especially with the seasons that are changing. But I need you to sit with a little bit longer. Trust that future self is cheering you on from the utter other side of this discomfort. Trust that the relationships you build from this grounded, self-aware place will be so much more fulfilling than anything you gave up. I want you to really be able to trust that learning to be alone with yourself is one of the most important skills you'll ever develop. And I know, and I get when people keep saying this, and and you'll know what type for you that alone time you need because when you're comfortable in your own company, you stop accepting poor treatment just to avoid being by yourself. And I think that just was life changing for me. But I know it can be challenging. So you understand your process the best. So we keep understanding and aware of that. The loneliness after letting go is absolutely real, and I want to validate that because it can feel overwhelming at times. So you don't have to pretend you're perfectly fine with being alone if you're still adjusting this new reality, and that's okay, right? There's no judgment there. But please remember this truth, okay? What you're experiencing is temporary, and it's preparing you for something beautiful. You're not being punished for finally choosing yourself. You're being lovingly prepared for connections that will actually celebrate and nourish the real you. The space you just courageously created by releasing what wasn't serving you is sacred territory. It's where you remember who you are when you're not performing for other people's approval. It's where you'll discover what brings you genuine joy when you're not constantly accommodating others' preferences. When that wave of loneliness hits this week, try asking yourself, what is this quiet space trying to teach me about myself? What part of my authentic self am I ready to welcome back home? You didn't let go of those relationships to punish yourself. You release them to make room for what you actually deserve. And I have that Miss Me journal that will help you develop all that. I'll put it down in the show notes if you want to be able to tap into that. But the discomfort you're feeling isn't the end of your story. It's the sacred beginning of a much more authentic and fulfilling chapter. I see you in this brave transition. I deeply honor your courage, and I'll be here with you next week. Enjoy this. Hope you enjoyed this. Let me know below on what was your favorite part, what resonated with you, so I can make sure we have more of it. If you want to hear any other topics, please let me know down below so I can make sure to be there for you. And I'm so excited that you just stuck in with us for this long because it means you were serious about the work that you're doing. I can't wait to see you next week. Talk to you soon. Try one of these episodes here.